Okay. Hi, my name is Krishna. I'll be the Prime Minister for this for SideGov. I'll be start for POIs. You can raise your hand. Um, okay, I'll be starting in three, two, one. Okay. This motion is clearly dealing in art at the very center of it. So a clear definition has to be made for what is art, what is the essence of art, and what's the purpose of art. The purpose of art to begin with, it's been a form of creative expression, and it's been a way for humans to express their key emotions, their complex varied emotions, through all of humanity. Art, for since the time of its inception, has showed suffering, showed growth, optimism, nihilism. It's shown almost all parts, all of the minute and niche parts of humanity have been expressed in the form of art. Art at its core has been made for humanity to express these complicated parts that it simply can't in text, or it can't text, or it can't say orally. Art has existed since the time of the very cavemen. Before we had farming, before we had food, we had finger paintings on cave walls for a reason, because art has always been centered around humanity. Now, one of the key essences of art is its individuality, its uniqueness, and its uniqueness in the way that it tells stories. So, art has always been about stories, from complicated paintings such as the Starry Night to a modern art scribble in a gallery. No matter what level of art you look at, they all have had a story behind it that again centers through human emotion and human experience. Now, AI over here fundamentally can never fulfill any of the key goals of art due to lacking the one main component, which is human experience, human suffering, human emotions. AI art, as it currently exists and as it will exist, can never understand or feel the same emotions that a human will feel and will phrase their art. Now, art is not just for the artist, it's also for the viewer. It exists to invoke emotions, and it allows the viewer to understand a story or experience that they haven't experienced themselves through various mediums. To appreciate it also exists to appreciate the creative process that went behind making that art. AI, in principle, cannot understand or feel these emotions, as it simply copies patterns and stitches them together to recreate the art that is already trained on. Now, why in principle would you involve AI in something that is so inherent in human? The development of AI was seen something that can foster technology, can foster innovation in technology, or can take away from menial repetitive tasks. It was meant to help humanity expand its horizons, and instead of wasting time on things it can avoid, focus on something that humanity uniquely can attend to. And art is that something that only humanity can uniquely attend to. When you involve a machine into something that's so inherently based on our emotions and creative expressions, it simply trivializes the human experience and suffering by allowing for mass production and simply copying existing patterns that have been created by humanity itself. Now, AI is more than simply just a tool. As I'm sure Apple mentioned, that AI is a tool, and a tool in the hands of a right person can cause good or bad. It depends. But no matter what tool you look at in the current paradigm, paintbrushes, paper, canvas, digital art, no matter what angle you take, the artist has forefront control in its experience and shapes it through every step of the process. No tool we have right now will ever produce a completed work through a simple text line. Even in AI, let's say that you state that the artist can control the prompt to some level. Writing a prompt allows for some level of control. But again, we would like to draw parallels to hiring a commission. If you buy a commission from an artist and you write them a sentence or prompt saying, hey, I want this from my art piece. I want me sketched in this art style. Can you do this for me? Once the art piece is produced, would you allow the person buying the commission from the human the title of artist? Or would you reserve that for the artists themselves? Now, AI art doesn't work in any form because market flooding will always occur when AI is involved. No matter, even if ethical means are used, it is a tool of mass production at its core. An AI production rate a human's production rate can never even think to match an AI's production rate. And it can never match the pace of it pumping out art. Sure, in the ethical stance, let's say that the models that are being used are trained on existing art and existing art pieces, and the artists are being compensated for their training material. Sure, the current artists are being compensated, but what happens to the thousands of future artists whose work will never even see the light of day simply because it's being buried under a mountain of AI art that a human artist can never even think of climbing, simply due to the way the technology works? Now, the livelihoods of humans are at stake. Even if you entertain, okay, I'll take the POI.
If I want a picture of a cute dog in a spacesuit, why do I have to appreciate the mountain of emotions rather than just like, oh, that's a cool picture?
Again, the definition that we are choosing to focus on is art that shows story, that shows human emotion, that shows human experiences through a human's eye. The part of art that we're focused on specifically is this: if you wanted something as trivial as that, photos of the same thing without that, photos which also have some level of creative expression can also fulfill the same need. There's no need to group in art, which is fundamentally in our paradigm a source of human expression, into this logical sense. Now, the fundamental reason why even ethically trained art cannot coexist with humans is because the livelihood of humans at stake. The livelihood of humans here is at stake in a way that there's no replacement for these artists. In the past, when new technologies have opened in certain industries, even though they do take up some jobs, new jobs have been created in the creation of these technology. But in this case, it is a well accepted fact that the rate at which AI is consuming jobs and also creating jobs is not balanced. AI is consuming jobs at a much faster rate than it is providing them. And here, creative jobs that are already underpaid and undervalued are extremely vulnerable over here. A human artist can charge hundreds of dollars and can take months or even years to work, but an AI model can do this in minutes or seconds. This devalues human skill and it increases the supply. This is basic supply and demand economics that are being used here. When the supply of one thing increases, the demand also decreases. So the demand for human labor will naturally decrease when AI mark floods the market eventually. It's the commodification of creativity. Proud to conclude. Thank you.
I thank the speaker for that fine speech. Hello, whenever you're ready. Here you.
Oh, cool. I'll just take like 30 seconds and start. Oh, cool. Abhijit going as Elo. Just shout out just my teammates, Navya, Joel, love you guys. And I think Dia is watching, so shout out as well. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Firstly, some characterization, then I'll go on to 3 of my arguments. What do these legal ramifications look like in compatibility, right? Note that we have 2 major types of legal ramifications. One on legal ramifications of stolen art, and 2, we have a more sense of like legislative government regulation on these AI companies who are making this ethical, quote unquote, ethical art in general, right? What do these things look like, right? Note that like legal ramifications include like setting up particular like squadrons to like track down or like enforcing fines on stolen art in general, right? This looks like sort of monetary compensation or any sort of punishment system required, right? This significantly curtails the harms of stolen art in general. But secondly, note that when government regulates AI companies, this forces AI companies to sort of disclose like exactly where they're sourcing their ethical art from, right? Which is incredibly important, because at a point at which you get your data sets from these artists, you are forced, or rather the government enforces these AI companies to go ahead and track down these artists and like pay these artists like some monetary compensation, right? Which thus like feeds into employment, which I will elaborate on later, right? These are just our two main mechanisms. Now let's go on to our arguments, right? Firstly, I just want to like push this on like government. Even if this is a THP motion, they still have to deal with exactly how they would go about like regulating or like completely banning like AI art in like an AI skepticism sort of paradigm. Why is this like necessarily hard to do, right? Because like on our side, right, we actually like have we have enforcement on the harms of AI, right? Which is why AI compatibility does exist, because we're recognizing like the harms of AI and we're recognizing the benefits as well, and we're creating an environment or a world where you can access those benefits while simultaneously facilitating those harms, right? I'm unclear as to how government like just asserts that like is just like banning AI will completely curtail AI, and like that won't like spring up altogether, right? Because note that this is still the status quo. Still exists, right? It's just that AI art is banned. But if AI exists, like how would you enforce the ban on AI art per se? This is very unclear to me. This is something that government has to deal with, right? But secondly, let's come to like the benefits of AI art and like talking about like what exactly AI art is, right? I want to reject this entire like two things on government, right? Firstly, they talk about principle. It's a very principled argument, right? Oh, art has feelings and stuff. But secondly, they talk about employment in terms of tangibility, right? You will deal with both of these things and win on them. Let's look at firstly how normal people access AI art, right? We reject this idea that AI art is just abomination or like art has like feelings, because like if you look at it like even rhetorically, right, AI is just like an amalgamation of like data sets that encompass like data sets that encompass like thousands and thousands upon like humanity's like creativity and feelings, right? We think like the only problem we have with AI art right now isn't to say that it is abomination, but rather that the harms, or rather like the harms associated with AI that puts like authentic artists at risk is something that we have to deal with, which is something that on our side of the house we more effectively curtail, right? We think that like a normal person, like for example, if I for example, like in terms of like data visualization, I can literally like go onto like an AI website and I can like type in prompts and I can get like an idea to visualize like the world or visualize my subjects. Like if I want like a funny or quirky picture, I can literally like type in that prompt and I can get it, right? These are things that I as a normal person can do very easily, and like this is an abomination because like I'm not like, this isn't something that's like incredibly important to me. This is just something that is useful. But I think secondly, more importantly, AI art has a lot of societal implications and a lot of unactivated benefits. Like for example, like you can use these in like police sketches and things like that, but you have like data sets that you can like be trained on that has like input and like height specifications and like physiological specifications of like suspects, and you can sort of train that AI to like make a sort of model of like the most culpable suspect. And we think like the potential of AI art to like be used in a way that sort of outshines humans, or rather do it in a way that is more rational and like is more complicated than humans, is very important, right? So far, like the only like response I get from Gov is AI art is bad because it doesn't have feelings. Like I don't get more than this, right? They have to deal with the benefits of AI art, but note that the only tangible harms I get from them is like the like demerits to the artists, which we will deal with on our side. Let's talk about tangible benefits. Let's talk about employment. I just want to reject this idea that like the AI industry is sort of destroying more jobs than it creates, because note that when these AI companies are like now legally like required to go ahead and like compensate these artists, you're generating like a shit ton of money and like a shit ton of like money flowing into this industry because you have a ton of data sets that you're training this AI on, right? This is incredibly important because couple of like three things on this, right? Firstly, art is a very scary profession. Like note that even if humanity romanticizes art, or art is romanticized since the dawn of humanity, art is pretty fucking hard to do, like even like in the status quo, right? Why is this the case? Because art isn't lucrative. Like there isn't that much of a market to art. Like if I tell my parents like I want to be an artist, they'd probably kick me out of the house. I'm in an engineering college for a reason, right? This is important, right? Because I can't necessarily go ahead and do what I want to do. But notice on our side, when you're providing them like this idea for them to pursue being an artist, but you're giving them steady compensation and like incentivized to give any POIs, by the way. 3, 2, 1. Seeing as they are none, I'll move on, right? Yeah, ask me fast.
Does opposition agree that if you use AI to generate art, it's taking away, every piece you're using is taking away a piece that a human could have produced? Do you agree or disagree with this statement?
Humans can still produce art. I'm unsure as to why you can have one or the other. AI compatibility, the entire point of our paradigm is both can exist at the same time. The idea of AI skepticism is you have to bite that bullet. We support a more curtailed version of using AI art with authentic art as well. And we think that bullet is something that we don't necessarily have to trade off on our side, but we will do it anyway. Right? Coming to this, right? Art isn't lucrative, but supplying a steady job for these artists in general. But I think secondly, this is incredibly important. Authentic art is going to be very highly valued on our side, just because it the idea of AI in the market is going to inflate the value of art, authentic art, because it's still something that humans care about. If we agree with Gav that authentic art and feelings are something that's necessarily important on our side, you have a larger value on authentic art just because it's something that's rarer or something that's more harder to do, right? The intuition pump for this is just handicrafted goods that are cost more and are more rare, right? But I think thirdly, our worst case trade-off is just that AI, our worst case trade-off is just benefits of AI are more accessible on our side as opposed to the harms, and we're able to successfully curtail our harms. For all these reasons, proud to oppose.
I thank the speaker for that fine speech. DPM, whenever you're ready, here. Also, can one of the panelists take over calling on the next speaker? I'm in Mumbai and today's Ganpati Visarjan, so there's a lot of background noise on my end. Not sure if you can hear it or not though.
My name is Japneet. I'll be going as the Deputy Prime Minister. Please raise your hands if you have any POIs. I will be taking them. I will be beginning in 3, 2, 1. I'd like to begin my argument by restating that art skepticism is a better model than art compatibilism for the following reasons. First, I would like to reiterate the very nature and essence of art. It's a deeply human expression that involves a lot of emotions. It's a method of communicating with your audience for the artist on a very deep level, and it often has value because of the story that is attached to it. AI can produce art, but it still lacks the emotional expression that art that is generated by humans has. AI generated art is devoid of any kind of authenticity or any kind of personal meaning. This undermines the very role of art for both the artist, for which it is supposed to be a therapeutic and creative process that uses skill and labor, and also for the viewer. For the purpose of the viewer who is supposed to have some kind of emotions evoked in them and derive aesthetic pleasure from the art that is created. AI operate even if AI models are trained to create art by giving compensation to the artist in a fair way, it is still inauthentic and goes against the very nature of art because it can only work on patterns and data. It can combine existing pieces of work with a limited number of permutations and combinations and create limited pieces of art. It cannot provide any kind of individuality or story. Um, Art often has stories associated to it, as is the example of the Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. In that case, the artist was confined to a mental asylum, and he was able to take his extremely traumatic and tumultuous life and convert it into a piece of art. And the reason that piece of art is so renowned and revered today is because of the kind of story that is attached to it. The sky in that painting represents the emotional turmoil of the artist, and the glow in the painting represents the hallucination he was seeing. This evokes a lot of emotion for the viewer. Um, Another reason why art skepticism is better than art compatibilism is because of oversaturation of the market. We need to understand that even if the AI model is trained, the rate at which AI is going to produce art is going to be much faster compared to the rate at which human beings can produce art. This is going to cause an oversaturation in the market. Side opposition spoke about how both can coexist, human generated art and AI generated art. The heart and soul of our argument is that they cannot coexist, because once those AI models have been trained with a certain amount of efficiency, it becomes very difficult to distinguish and blur, and the lines between art created by human beings and AI becomes blurred to the extent that the normal human eye cannot distinguish which has been made by whom. This leads to a devaluation of human artists, the creative process, and goes against the very nature of art. unless the human being who is viewing the art goes ahead and verifies who the art is made by, and investigates about the art, it's very difficult to judge who the art is made by and ensure that newer artists who are just entering into the scenario or the value of art for its reason of creation is being valued. What AI is going to do if it's allowed to rapidly generate art after going through training is that it's going to lead to the homogenization of art. Art is going to become extremely generic. We have seen examples in the past where art has been used as a means of social commentary. Art has been used to challenge ideas. That's something that AI will never be capable of doing because it is not a living, functioning thing that can go ahead and bring the ideas of reform forward through art. What AI will merely do is that it is going to create art that is generic and homogenic. It is going to reduce art to a commodity. It's going to make art cheaper because AI can rapidly produce art even if the artists are being compensated for their intellectual property. It will become easier to acquire and own art that is going to be appreciated for the thought behind it. Art that is displayed in galleries and museums will not be created. Only art that is easier to buy and dispose of and become a disposable commodity will be created. It will also cause a lot of job displacement in the sense that artists who are creating such art will not be paid for the labor that is going in. The leader of opposition argued that art is a scary profession and it is difficult to do. This is all the more a reason why art should be appreciated for the labor and skill. They also spoke about how it's extremely difficult to become an artist and how people are pushed into conventional careers. Something that is so rare should be appreciated. Authentic art existing is only for well-known artists. When you can distinguish that the Mona Lisa was made by Leonardo da Vinci, or what the famous paintings that we know of, for newer artists who are just entering into the market, if the market is saturated by pieces of generic AI art, it will become very difficult for them to get recognition for a process that is very human in its nature. In a world where we promote AI skepticism, it is going to look much better for the following reasons. Because the artists will be valued. They will be valued for their labor, for their creative expression. Newer artists will be able to enter the market, and the values that art stands for, expertise, originality, labor, going through a creative, transformative, reflective process will be valued. The viewers and the consumers, they will be given an authentic experience, the authentic experience that art should guarantee. The society at large will also benefit from having AI skepticism instead of AI compatibilism, because in a world where AI is taking over in every sphere, in every aspect that you look at, we have AI. Some things that are such as art, that just exist for the purposes of human pleasure, should be left to humans because they are the only thing that maintain their essence. They also spoke about how it is easier to access art through AI. But that access does not stand for the nature of art. AI is more than just a tool. Even if we say that AI art is not an abomination, AI art in general is not a victimless crime. When you take into consideration every piece of art that you give to AI is one piece of art that a human has not produced. Money is being produced at the loss of the soul of art. Money. This is why we believe that both of them cannot coexist at the same time. With that, I would conclude my argument.
I thank the speaker for that fine speech. DLO, whenever you're ready, you're here.
Hi, just give me like 20 seconds. Thank you. Cool. Oh, wait, 1 second. Okay, cool. I can't find my phone to put a timer for myself, so I'll just refer to like the one that's being presented.
1 second, just
What?
take your phone.
It's okay to stop.
Okay, it's fine. Okay, cool. Sorry for the delay. Cool. This is Navya going as Deputy Leader of Opposition. POI preferences through chat. I will ask for one around 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Oh, I found my phone. Great. Okay, wait. This is just, I don't know, like tradition, so I'm just going to give a couple of shout outs. Firstly, to just my teammates Abhijit and Joel for like carrying me all the way here. Thank you so much. Secondly, to just VIT DebSoc for just being like the best college experience that I've had, and like just making college like a more sufferable place, right? And like thirdly, just my girlfriend who's always been there for me for everything, and like I couldn't be here without her anyway. Cool. Moving on then, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, this is how I'm going to structure my speech. Firstly, a couple of responses to what side government has been pushing in this debate, and then I'll give a summary of what our impacts are in this debate, and then just the extension that is on side opposition, and then again just further impacting and just building on the mechanisms that already exist in the debate from our side of the house, right? Cool. Responses to what side government says in terms of like when they talk about oversaturation of art and market, which necessarily makes it cheaper, and like generic art becomes a commodity, and like it's just something that becomes something that is necessarily existing on our side of the house, right? I think this is symmetric because like I can also mass produce art on your side of the house by like just hiring like unskilled laborers and telling them to make like a very childlike photo of like just a box and a triangle on top and be like it's house. So I'm just mass producing this art and selling an environment. Like I don't understand how mass production of art is not symmetric. The point that we're trying to push in this debate is that quality of art that is being pushed on our side of the house is necessarily becoming better because of AI, right? How does this happen? It happens because if anything, if AI is necessarily just creating more and more art, that necessarily means that we get better art on our side, because now the competition for art becomes higher, right? Meaning artists who make art necessarily have to push the limits of like what art they're producing, limits of their creativity, necessarily meaning that they need to generate better art to compete with this AI in the first place, right? That is when like you consider the fact like the oversaturation is symmetric in the first place, and this generates more creativity on our side of the house, right? Secondly, then they just give like this assertion about like how line between AI art and like normal art is just real world art is just more blurred and it just gets fucked in the first place, right? I think we already characterize this in the debate, and like it's already there in the info slide. We'll literally have regulations which market AI art as AI art, right? I think that creates the clear distinction between like art being like AI art or like just human made art, which like necessarily means that the credit for human made art is not lost, meaning like the line between this art is not fucked in the first place. And like I think we're able to like mitigate those harms largely in terms of like how it works, right? Then moving on to like what we have on side opposition. On side opposition, we have 3 broad impacts. First impact is better expressionism on scale. Second is better employment for artists from all statuses of society, not necessarily just rich or poor artists, but for everyone. And thirdly, just art is less likely to die out on our side, and like because like people necessarily don't quit, right? I'll provide like mechanisms and like extensions as to why this works on our side. Side government's character in this debate is that art is necessarily centered around humanity in terms of like how humans interact with themselves since the caveman era, right? Like humans necessarily communicated through art for centuries and millennia together, right? Meaning that if I am an average individual on their paradigm and I do not have the aptitude as like a normal like fucking Da Vinci to like make like Mona Lisa or whatever to make art, I cannot tap into my interest or like my passion of like just expressing myself through art, because I necessarily have this barrier that I do not have the aptitude to like use art to express myself, right? On our side of the house, AI helps art get better in the like in general, right? Because if I'm an average artist, I enjoy drawing art, like I enjoy drawing or enjoy sculpting or whatever, I can express myself by giving simply giving AI a prompt, which necessarily then gives me a way or like a pipeline for me to just express myself in terms of like my emotions, what I'm feeling at that point of time, which is necessarily exclusive impact on our side, right? And this doesn't exist on their side. If I am interested and I cannot like do not have the aptitude, I can't do that on their side, right? What does this do? The impact that this has then is that this positive optics of art in general, people engage in art more because these average people now have utility to like use this AI in like terms of like just self-expressionism, and like on scale you're just having more people able to express themselves, right? Which is literally what government's CARAC is in this debate, meaning like art-centered humanity is necessarily using art to express themselves. We beat them on this metric that they've been trying to push in this debate, meaning like we have more expressionism, meaning people just view more art in a more positive light, and art just sustains for longer on our side of the house, right? Secondly, Abhijit has already talked about how employment is better. I'll just give you a different mechanism and like reach the same impact of like how we have better employment, right? Understand that when our first speaker comes and characterizes that art is a hard world, this career, like industry is a very hard industry to break into, because it's not as easy as like, it is not as in as much as demand as like some engineering job or like some other job in terms of like law or whatever, right? It's necessarily hard career to break into, even more so for marginalized groups or like people who are poor in general to break into these careers, because they have systemic barriers to properly have a career in art, right? Meaning like that it becomes necessarily hard on their side of the house when like on both sides of the house, when it's like harder for people to break into like art, right? We solve this problem by creating more jobs. Art industry is very hard to break into. I've already explained to you. We make it easier for people to break into these like industries by creating a completely new fucking industry for artists to like break into, right? Meaning that it becomes a more acceptable career. It allows for more people to like, who have the passion and aptitude to like pursue art, to like engage in it, right? Meaning like people who necessarily thought like art is something like on their side of the house, like art is a career that I cannot opt into. Necessarily we allow these people to do that and necessarily just pursue their interests, because now like we have like literally created a fucking new industry for these people, right? The positive impacts for this we have are three. One, more artists, which is more better for art, because like artists who like necessarily thought like they do not have the aptitude for, they cannot pursue art as a career, necessarily now have a way to pursue art as a career, right? Meaning like we have more artists, meaning it's just better overall for art, right? Second impact is that we have a new pipeline for money in economy. Now like we're allowing these AI artist jobs to be created, meaning there's more and more money in the economy. All in all, it's just better for everybody in the country, or like better for everybody in the world, because there's more money in the economy, right? Thirdly, we provide more utility to marginalized and poor artists who necessarily have systemic barriers stopping them from becoming a proper art or like pursuing art as a career, right? Meaning then we just have more people on scale just being impacted, where like we're able to weigh out on metric of scale quickly. POI 3, 2, 1. Okay, no POI, protected time, whatever. Then finally, then why we think that employment better has a second argument in terms of like another mechanism to reaching this impact, right? I think on our side, when you are creating AI artist jobs, or like whatever you want to describe it, whatever adjective you want to use, lesser people who have wanted to pursue art quit. Imagine you're an artist on their side of the paradigm. You understand that this is a very hard industry to break into. I cannot possibly make it into a career and like make it into a career which necessarily like probably funds my rent, funds my meals, funds my family's like income requirements or whatever, right? It's a very big gamble unless and until I know that there's a sure shot way for me to like have any guarantee of success in this career, which doesn't exist on their side. We provide some sort of success in terms, some sort of guarantee in terms of like you are going to have some stable income as an AI artist when we are literally creating these jobs and creating more employment, right? What then happens is that lesser artists quit these jobs, meaning like artists who have always wanted to pursue art as a career are now able to do that. They don't have to make the sacrifice of art as a career, because now art has literally become a more acceptable career, right? When art becomes a more acceptable career, again, you have more positive optics for art, better expressionism. And this is literally like what all the positive matter we have on our side, they have to deal with a lot on their side. And for those reasons, could not be more proud to oppose side op.
I thank the speaker for that fine speech. Kavip, whenever you're ready, here.
We'll take 30 seconds.
Hi, my name is Seher. I'll be going as a government whip, and I'll start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. The very first thing that I'd like to make clear is that today we're debating skepticism versus compatibilism, and skepticism is something that we think in the art industry is something that that will exist, that will make the art industry flourish more as compared to the pattern that the opposition is suggesting here. Skepticism prevents the displacement of human artists by machines, and creative jobs are something that need to be replenished and renewed in today's day and age, and that is something that is going to be opposed by what the opposition is proposing here. stated that both authentic artists as well as AI artists are something that can coexist in today's market, but we feel that this is completely utopian, because even if we consider that humans and AI art coexist, compatibilism may lead to compromise in the artistic integrity, pressuring the artist to conform to the AI trends and styles to stay relevant, right? Because AI is something that is creating this art by machine learning, or the mechanisms that it has in place, at a speed or a rate that is much higher as compared to normal human artists, because of which now for authentic artists to stay relevant, they need to conform to these trends. And we believe that the authenticity and integrity of art is challenging these trends, challenging these social norms, showing emotions, showing culture, and showing human experience, because of which art becomes authentic, or art becomes unique, and art becomes diverse. You are stopping, ultimately trying to stop the diversity that exists in art today, and that is something that we do not stand for. They said again and again that art is something that is not lucrative, right? That art is a profession that is very hard to get in. But we believe that because of art being such a rare profession, something that people are willing to put their heart and soul into, are getting into despite knowing all the difficulties that it poses, that is something that we should promote, rather than saturating the market with AI generated duplicates that lack authenticity, that lack imperfections, that make an art piece even more unique. And we shouldn't suppress the authentic artists, and we believe that they should be given a chance to rise, right? The op wants to commoditize art and dissolve the artistic labor, and negate everything that goes into creating something. We believe that art is not a journey, is a journey based profession. It does not rely on end result. Art at its core is not about money. It's not about the amount of money you make. It's not about the market that it's created. It is the artistic industry that is valued for the immense amount of creativity and labor that goes into creating these art pieces, right? They said that as a result of AI generated art, the value of authentic art is something that is going to increase if they both coexist. But we feel that this is also a dystopian idea, because this is only true for very famous authentic artists in that case. What about people who are just starting out in their career? What about people from smaller artists from marginalized communities, or people who do not have a platform to display their work yet? They will not be benefited by this model. They also said that normal artists are now going to compete with AI artists, which is further going to create more boost creativity and create diverse type of art forms. But this is also something that is very idealistic in nature, because the speed of AI, the speed at which AI is producing art is much higher as compared to a human doing the same thing, and as a result of which they cannot practically keep up with AI in this sense. And that idea is also something that we do not buy. They said that this is by creating AI art, more artist jobs are created, but it is a proven fact that in AI, jobs created is significantly less as compared to the jobs that it takes up. And the amount of money that a normal artist could have made is now being used up by these AI tech companies, right? The op has come up here, but provided no mechanism on how they are going to commission these artists, how they are going to credit them for their work. And we've been provided no compensation for the same. They also pointed out that while AI exists normally, how are we going to ban AI that will produce art, right? But this is, in this debate, it is not our burden to provide how art is going to be banned. Our burden is to argue that AI should not be allowed in the art industry, and I think we've done that pretty well. Through this, people get the avenue to express themselves, but at the cost of what? All the other points that were mentioned cannot be overlooked. Alternative is for commissions for the art that you want. If you can't afford it, then go to smaller scale artists, right? The art making art cheaper is going to degrade the quality, it's going to degrade its authenticity, and that is something that the essence of art does not stand for. Art is ambiguous in nature, it's complex in nature, and it cannot be replicated by machine learning, and the market cannot be oversaturated, and this creativity cannot be diminished because of the same. They also want to achieve an increase in the expression of people, but that is not something that is achieved when AI would generate the outcome based on what is there in what already exists in their data set, right? We believe that AI is just more than a tool. No matter what tool, it will never produce a complete work, right? With that, I rest my case.
I thank the speaker for that fine speech. Opip, whenever you're ready, here.
Yeah, just give me 30 seconds. Thank you. Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Ajay Joel. No preferred pronouns. I will be the whip for this round. The whip for this round. Sorry, opera for the round. And yeah, just quick shout outs. I love my teammates. They've been really great. Thank you, Dia, Hari, and like anyone else from BIT DevSoc for like watching these finals. Really love you guys. With that done, third time's the charm. Let me start my speak in 3. Sorry, just actually give me a minute. Let me put my notes in order. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, and 1. The burden that we take in this debate is very, very simple, right? One, it's also about social movements and like how exactly you want to create this change. I don't think that's entirely out of the debate, simply because you prefer either one method of achieving the kind of change that you want to, or you prefer the other method of achieving the change. On our movement, we prefer skepticism, where we don't completely oppose AI, right? We give you like AI art in itself, right? We give you like enough mechanisms through which social movements can create tangible change, could actually create tangible regulation on our side. Abhijit makes this very, very clear to you, right? Whereas I never really get any likelihood on their side as to why exactly, even if they aggressively oppose art, AI art is just suddenly going to spontaneously disappear from the world. That is not going to happen. Profit incentives, everything has been made very, very clear to you. Just simply on likelihood, we think we win this clash, right? We just think that the benefits of having AI art are still better than the harms that exist from AI art, simply because we are able to mitigate the harms that exist on our side through regulation, through government intervention. On their side, they're not able to do this, right? But even apart from this, being very, very charitable to them, understanding that like, okay, even if like we want to debate the harms of AI art in itself and assuming that they are able to completely ban AI art and that becomes the counterfactual, we think we will still win this debate, right? Why? Firstly, on this idea of how fast AI art tends to be created, and like this idea of mass manufacturing, right? Notice that AI still needs human input in order to like generate the kind of art, right? People are needed for this process because, as they say, and we completely agree, only human beings are able to creatively create things, which means that AI cannot do it. It can only be an amalgamation of different kinds of art from different parts of humanity and be able to put this together, right? AI art is only valuable because it consists of humanity's contributions in the field of art. It is a tool that can be used for the common man who might not even be good at art, but they are able to utilize the art of like all the rest of humanity who has an art and creativity of the rest of humanity, because it becomes something that amalgamates different art and creates it into one thing, right? This is a net benefit, and we made this very, very clear to you. The only harm is the way through which this data is collected and the way on which whether or not this is harmful to the artist or not, and we want to deal with that. And we believe that through legislation and through our model and mechanisms, we will be able to get better justice for artists and like revolutionize the art industry in itself and kind of like make it a better world than it is today, even on our side, right? One, and simply then on the value of art itself and the value of why it is derived by individuality, I want to respond to that, right? One, I think this is highly inexclusive. I don't understand why the art that people make on our side, even if they're like feeding it to AI art, doesn't have any individuality, right? People still make art on our side, but like they are able to make better money of it because now it's a monetizable career, because like you're able to pursue this as a career yourself. and like as a result individuality will still always continue to exist, right? Because like you still monetize individual human artists, because and like what we are doing on our side is simply creating an entire industry which values creativity, which values individuality, right? Because notice AI cannot create the same art that a human does, no matter how advanced it is, because humans, as they say, have art inherently values individuality, inherently values creativity. It needs to tell a story. Their own reasoning as to why art is uniquely only creatable by a human means that a human's art is still inherently will find value, more value than an AI's art, right? Notice both of these kind of coexist on our world. At that point, AI cannot create human art. You still retain authenticity on our side. That is not something that they can tell, right? Which is why individuality and the authenticity of the side of art is not exclusive towards their side. That absolutely exists on our side as well, right? Talking then about like credit, which credit for the art, which we think is a relevant problem, right? Which we think is a pretty important problem. But once again, as like I think Navya and Abhijit make it very, very clear, we can like create regulation for this on our side. But even if this regulation doesn't pass, and let's say like credit, like artists don't get as much credit for their art, we think this is something that we're willing to trade off in support for like financial incentives for the artist industry in itself to grow, right? Because notice trade off, even if the artist doesn't get credit for their art and like what art is exactly used in like different sort of AI art, they still get monetary benefits out of this, right? Why is this trade off fine with us? Notice that like credit isn't as important because we generate more revenue for smaller artists who don't really get a lot of revenue on status quo anyways, right? Notice that like on the counterfactual, at a point at which you have a lot of like any sort of like the only people making money of art are people who like sell to billionaires and millionaires. Art doesn't really have a lot of value on a mass scale, but on our world we're able to like, even if we do in fact mass produce art and like get people to sell their art to these AI companies, they're able to monetize this to a better extent. You're able to create more value from this art, and as a result the art industry itself flourishes. Art becomes a very lucrative career option for people who want to follow that. Notice that smaller artists who might not be Leonardo da Vinci but still like to create art and like are proud of the art that they make are still able to sell this to the market, because the world is capitalist either on your side or on my side. Monetary value does end up mattering, right? We think that outweighs any credit, but we think that we can still push for like credit friendly laws in which like you need to kind of you need to like declare where you're sourcing the art from. That is all like possible on our only on your side. Your side doesn't have enough leverage to actually make that push, right? Secondly, on oversaturation and mass production, notice this is simply just like this idea of like, in the 18th century you probably had like handicrafts that made a lot of money, but once like mass produced things came into the market, these handicrafts doesn't mean that handicrafts just suddenly became like lesser valuable, right? It just means that you still look for authentic handicrafts. You still have people who look for authentic art pieces on our world, in which you still probably have billionaires buying Mona Lisa and like artists artwork like that for $1 million, for $1 billion, because it is authentic, because it was created by a human being. It was not created by a machine, right? Notice in the status quo, unlike handicrafts, art that is normal in nature, or like that's very like it's not extraordinary in nature, that's something like doesn't have a lot of monetary value to like the public, right? Because like what are you going to be doing with that art? They never really tell you why like art is somehow valuable more in their side. They just claim that like because art becomes homogenized, they just claim that art will become homogenized, right? But notice, if art, even if that is true, even if AI art becomes homogenized, that is exactly why the creativity and the uniqueness that a human being has will always be in demand. There is going to be more demand for the creativity that human gives, either on like big players who try to buy art, or even more so on our side from AI companies who want to source this art to create more AI art and like create an entire industry of this. Notice that bigger artists are going to be symmetric on our side, whereas smaller artists can make their livelihood much better on our side. I'm very, very, very proud to oppose. Thank you.
I thank the speaker for that fine speech. Opt reply whenever you're ready. Here.
Oh, cool. I'll take like 20 seconds and I'll start. Cool. I'm Abhijit. I was the LO. I'll be giving my reply. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Our case is very, very simple. There are benefits of ethical AI art, and these benefits stand insofar as the harms are curtailed. But note that at a point at which we curtail these harms, these benefits are even more so activated, like in comparison to government. 4 things I'll talk about in my reply speech. Firstly, I just want to address the regulations and like the legal practices that we're operating this ethical art on, right? Note that we're doing 2 things here. One, we're legally regulating this idea of stolen art. So like everything that government says about, oh, like AI like makes artists susceptible to exploitation is going to be effectively curtailed by the government, right? This is incredibly important for one key reason. Firstly, it like for 2 key reasons. Firstly, like again, like the artists get saved and they're like incredibly important stakeholders in this debate. But 2, like the AI companies themselves are forced to have this transparency within the government, right? Which means that they can't necessarily like unethically source their data sources from like random artists, like random places on the internet, right? There's more effective sourcing of AI art, which means that if there is more effective sourcing of AI art, there's probably going to be better sourcing of AI art, which leads to better AI art in general. But I think secondly, this is even better for like the artists themselves, right? Because they are monetarily compensated, which is what Joel talks about, right? Even if these artists were willing to trade off like the recognition that they're going to end up getting, but we still get that monetary compensation. This is something we talk extensively about, right? Government does not deal with the logistical nightmare that is to say banning AI art or curtailing the harms that like AI still has on their side. Even if it isn't AI art, there is still stolen art on their side. Note that a point at which like legal precedence doesn't take care of this, like government bench is still susceptible to all of this, right? But I think secondly, the main push in this entire debate is, oh, art is feelings, art is creative. Like, sure, but 2 things in this debate, right? Firstly, we tell you that like AI art normal people use aren't going to be used for feelings. Like I'm not going to gaze like on AI art the same way that I look at Starry Night from Vincent van Gogh, right? These serve wildly different things. I just want to look at like funny prompts of like random things, or I want to visualize like a concept that is taught in class, right? This is how like normal people use AI. I'm unsure as to why I have to like romanticize like art from like the Renaissance era to like appreciate like a dog on a skateboard or something, right? Like I don't know why this is the case. But I think secondly, we tell you the actual like societal implications that ethical art actually has, right? Insofar as helping like criminal agencies, insofar as like helping like graphic design, right? These are all incredibly important like societal things and benefits that are activated from AI art, right? But I think secondly, let's talk about coexistence, right? They tell me like saturation implies inflation and only popular people can use this. I'm unsure as to why this is the case, right? Because like if I am buying like the intuition pump for like a handicraft thing still apparently stands for some reason. Like if I'm buying handicrafts, I don't like Google which is the top most handicraft seller. Like I'm just like, oh, it's a handicraft thing. That's something that's rare. I'm going to buy it anyway, right? But I think even then, right? I think if this is an important metric, we curtail to the most vulnerable or low class like citizens, because note that art is hierarchical. If like you like opt for like paying artists commissions, you're probably going to pay like the top artists, not like a noob artist. So like if we're employing jobs or whatnot, like note that like everyone is employed like unilaterally, right? It's more easy to employ like a bunch of people. But I think thirdly, when you're coming to employment, they say it's a proven fact that AI takes more jobs than it provides, and then proceed to not do any proving whatsoever. We give you like structural reasons why like companies that are going to hire these artists, or like not hire these artists, but like monetarily compensate these artists that they're sourcing art from, is going to like end up like creating so much more revenue for art in general, right? Because it's not necessarily a lucrative profession. Because even though like art isn't like art is so romanticized, there exists like an inability to access it, a positive case and a negative case that should be enough to take this debate.
I thank the speaker for that fine speech. Gov reply whenever you're ready. Here.
Hi, I'm Krishna. I said the PM speech. I'll be starting now. Okay, I'll be starting 3, 2, 1. Side op has fundamentally misunderstood this debate, has misunderstood the burdens, and also I firmly believe they do not know the definition of the word mechanism. Now I'll go into these one by step and explain why I believe this. okay, repeatedly throughout their debate, they mentioned over and over again that it was our burden to explain how AI art will completely disappear. Again, I repeat, this motion is a this house prefers motion. We have to show why exactly do we prefer skepticism over their paradigm, which is compatibilism. They have to show why their method works when ours doesn't. Right? It was not our burden to explain why AI should completely disappear, and this was never part of the motion to begin with. This misunderstood the purpose of the debate and shows their understanding of the situation at hand. Now, now let's get into mechanisms. They provided no mechanism on how compatibilism is beneficial or how ethical art is even possible in their principle of compatibilism. How are you going to compensate the artists? Are you going to pay them piece by piece? Every single piece of AI art that's produced, you're going to pay the artist a certain amount. Is that going to happen? Are you going to pay them for a one-time license? Is it maybe ad revenue? How does your base work? The op side does not know how to justify because they have no mechanism in place to solve their key goal, which is to show why compatibilism works when skepticism doesn't. Now, their side harps on again and again and again why this allows people to express themselves. But first of all, they fail to realize what the cost of this idealistic vision is. And also, fundamentally, this doesn't allow for expression. The government wants, and we also want an increase in artistic expression. But if it comes at the cost at taking away livelihood from already struggling artists, then we do not support this. Also, it does not allow for expression to begin with. It is a set outcome based on a very stagnant data set. Once the data set is fed into an AI model, it is rarely changed. That data set is used to train all of its future creations. It simply vomits out patterns that form a fake copy of what art actually is. It picks and chooses patterns and stitches them together into something humans can say, hey, maybe that's art. They also said that it increases monetization. They brought up that it allows for authentic art to increase in value, when this is wrong for key reasons. Okay, first of all, this fundamentally contradicts the most basic principles of economy. When you have more of something, it decreases the value of the individual. When you have a million art pieces just blurted out from one sentence, it is obviously going to decrease the value of one individual art. If I'm a cup maker and I'm individually making 10 custom carved cups a day, and a factory is producing 1 million in a month, how in the world am I supposed to compare? How am I supposed to compete if my product looks the same as theirs? And again, for monetization, they brought no mechanism for monetization. They said it brought more monetization for smaller artists. How does your model do this? There's no mechanization provided at all. Now, let's go into increasing value of established art. The only type of art where this might, entering ops paradigm, the only world where this could increase some established value is for the artists who already have an established value and have an established brand, who are already being displayed in the thousands of museums across the world, who are already being paid millions of dollars for their art pieces. They blissfully choose to ignore the smaller artists who, for the first time after years of practice, are now for the first time trying to sell. They have no brand recognition. They have no industry contacts. They have their art as it is right now. Its value is yet to be decided. And do you know what will decide the value of this art? What will decide the value of this art is the mountain of AI art that is generated through a simple paragraph. Ops paradigm can never compete with ours because it fundamentally does not allow for the artist to grow. It does not allow for art to exist as it has been defined. And they fail critically in key parts of the debate because of these reasons. Thank you.